The following is a free-for-download audiobook available on KrishnaPath.org. Kṛṣṇa Consciousness, the Topmost Yoga System. Chapter 6, Sources of Absolute Knowledge. We require to hear about the method of relishing the Srimad Bhagavatam, the most elevated text on the science of God consciousness, the mature and ripened fruit of this tree of Vedic wisdom. The Sanskrit word rasa means juice, just like the juice of an orange or a mango. And the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam requests that you kindly try to taste the rasa, or juice, of the fruit of the Bhagavatam. Why? Why shall I taste the fruit of the juice of the Bhagavatam? Because it is the ripened fruit of the Vedic desire tree. As a desire tree, whatever you want, you can have from the Vedas. Veda means knowledge. It is so complete that whether you want to enjoy in this material world or you want to enjoy spiritual life, both kinds of knowledge are there. If you follow the Vedic principles, then you will be happy. This is like the codes of the state. If the citizens obey, then they will be happy. There will be no criminal trespassing, and they will enjoy life. The state does not come to you for nothing, just to trouble you, but if you live according to the state law, there is no question of unhappiness. Similarly, this conditioned soul, the living entity, has come here to this material world for enjoyment and for material happiness. And the Vedas are the guidance. All right, enjoy, but you enjoy according to these principles. That is called Veda. Therefore, everything is there. Just as we sometimes perform a marriage ceremony in the temple. What is this marriage ceremony? It is the combination of man and woman, boy and girl. They are already there. They are living like friends. What is the use of this marriage ceremony? It is Vedic. The Vedas account for living together, sex life, and under some special regulations so that you may be happy. The ultimate end is to become happy. If you follow the Vedic rules and restrictions, that will not mean that you will be kept from eating or not allowed to sleep, not allowed to defend, or to have sex life. It is not like that. Your bodily necessities are the same as those of the animals. The animals also eat, they also sleep, they also mate, and also defend. So we require these things also. But the Vedas prescribe some regulations. You act in this way so that you will not be unhappy. If you follow the regulations, ultimately the result will be that you will be free from the material entanglement. This material life is not meant for the spirit soul. It is simply a misunderstanding that you want to enjoy this material life. But Krishna, the Supreme Lord, gives us specific orders so that we can enjoy in such a way that at the end we will understand that this is not our proper life. Our proper life is spiritual. This human form of life is perfected as soon as we come to the understanding of spiritual existence, that I am Brahman. Otherwise, if I do not take care of my spiritual life, then the result is that I must live as the cats and dogs do. Then there is every possibility that my next life will be an animal life. And if by chance or by a freak of nature I get into animal life, then millions and millions of years will be required before again coming to this human form of life. So the human form of life is meant for self-realization, and the Vedas are the direction. Now, in the Bhagavad-gītā, you will find that Krishna says that to study or to follow the rules and regulations of the Vedas actually means to come to the understanding of Kṛṣṇa consciousness. That is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam also. So the Vedas give you the chance to gradually come to the point of understanding Krishna after many, many births. But the Bhagavatam is called the essence of life, the ripened fruit of the Vedas, because the Bhagavatam gives you directly what is needed in your life. The Vedas are divided into 4, Samaveda, Rik, Atharva, and Judges. Then these are explained by the Puranas, of which there are 18. Then these are still further explained by the Upanishads, of which there are 108. The Upanishads are summarized in the Vedanta Sutra, and the Vedanta Sutra is still again explained by the Srimad Bhagavatam by the same author. This is the process. So, the Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. Naimisharanya is a very famous and sacred forest in northern India, where all the rishis and the sages generally go to aid their spiritual advancement of life. This Srimad Bhagavatam was first discussed in this age in that forest. When it was discussed, the great saint, Sutta Goswami, was asked by his audience, "Now that Krishna has gone back to his abode, with whom is transcendental knowledge now resting?" This question was raised. The Bhagavad-gītā was spoken by Krishna himself, and it contains all descriptions of jnana-yoga, karma-yoga, dhyana-yoga, and bhakti-yoga. Now this inquiry was made, where can you get spiritual knowledge now that Krishna is gone? The answer was that Krishna, having departed, has left us the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the representation, the sound representation of Krishna. The Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna, as the Gita is not different from Krishna. They are absolute. Krishna and Krishna's sound vibration are not different. Krishna and Krishna's name are also not different. And Krishna and Krishna's form, again, are not different. This is absolute. It requires realization. This Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam are sound incarnations of Krishna. The Srimad Bhagavatam is also the literary incarnation of Krishna, and it is the fruit of Vedic knowledge. You may have experienced that there is a bird which is called a parrot. The parrot's body is green, and his beak is red. The specific qualification of the parrot is that whatever you say, he can imitate. That parrot bird is touching the ripened fruit, and naturally, if the fruit is ripened on the tree, it becomes very tasteful. Again, if the fruit is tasted by the parrot, it becomes still more tasteful. That is nature's way. So here it is said that this Srimad Bhagavatam is just like the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge, and at the same time it is touched by Shukadeva Goswami, Sutta's spiritual master. Shuka means parrot in Sanskrit. This Srimad Bhagavatam was first explained by Shukadeva Goswami, though the author is his father, Vyas. Shukadeva was only 16 years old when he taught the Bhagavatam, and he was illuminated. He was already liberated in the impersonal concept of the Absolute, but after hearing the Bhagavatam from his father, he became attracted by the pastimes of Krishna, and he became a preacher of the Bhagavatam. First, he explained it before Maharaj Parikshit, the great king. A short history of Maharaj Parikshit is that he was a very pious king, but unfortunately, by some of his acts, he was cursed by a Brahmana boy to die within 7 days. In those days, if a Brahmana should curse someone, it would come true. They had the power to curse or to give benediction. So Parikshit understood that within a week he would have to die, and he prepared himself. He gave up his kingdom, entrusted it to his son, Maharaj Jamanjai, and he detached himself from the family and sat down on the banks of the Ganges near Delhi. It was not exactly the Ganges, it was actually the Yamuna. There, because he was a great emperor, many learned sages came. Parikshit now inquired from all the great sages present there, quote, "What is my duty? I am going to die within 7 days. Now, what is my duty? You are all learned sages. Please just prescribe for me." End quote. So someone said to practice yoga, someone said to practice jnana, the cultivation of knowledge. There were different opinions. But at that time, Shukadeva Goswami entered the forest, and although Shukadeva was only 16, he was so learned and reputed that all the old sages, including his father, Vyasadeva, stood up to show him respect. He was so learned. So when he appeared, it was agreed, quote, "Here is Shukadeva Goswami. Let him decide what to do. We appoint him as our representative." End quote. Shukadeva Goswami was thus authorized to speak, and he was asked, quote, "What is my duty? I am very fortunate that you have come in this momentous hour. Kindly tell me what is my duty." End quote. Shukadeva Goswami said, quote, "All right, I shall explain to you the Srimad Bhagavatam." End quote. Then everyone present agreed. As the Bhagavatam was first spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, it is therefore mentioned that as the parrot touches ripened fruit and it becomes even sweeter, so the Srimad Bhagavatam, because it was touched first by Shukadeva Goswami, has become still more tasteful. The idea is that any Vedic literature, especially the Bhagavatam or the Gita, should be learned as spoken by a realized soul. especially this literature, which is called Vaishnava literature, should not be heard from a person who is not a devotee. This point I have several times stressed. Those who are non-devotees, those who are mental speculators, those who are fruitive workers, those who are meditators or mystic yogis, cannot explain the science of God. This is especially mentioned also by Sanatana Goswami, another great saint. Those who are not in devotional service, non-godly, those who have no faith in God, such persons should not be allowed to speak on the Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam or any literature that is in relationship with the Supreme Lord. So it is not that anybody can speak the Bhagavatam or the Gita and we will have to hear it. No, Sanatana Goswami especially prohibits us. We should not hear of the Supreme Lord from one who is not purified. One may ask, quote, how can you taint the words of Krishna, which are transcendentally, naturally pure? What is the harm if we hear from the non-devotee? End quote. This question may be raised. The example given here is that milk is very nice and nutritious, but as soon as it is touched by a serpent, it becomes poison immediately. The serpent is very envious. He bites and puts to death immediately, unnecessarily, and therefore is considered the cruelest animal among the living entities. In the Shastra, nonviolence is recommended, as in every scripture, but the serpent and the scorpion are allowed to be killed. You cannot say that milk is so nutritious and we can drink. What is the harm if it is touched by serpents? No, the result will be death. One should not hear at least the Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam from those who are not devotees of the Lord, who have no realization of God and who are envious of Him. Their touch renders it poison. The words of the Lord are always sublime, but as soon as they are touched by the serpent of a non-devotee, one should be very careful about hearing. In the Bhagavatam, it is indicated that as soon as Sukadeva Goswami touched it, it became delicious. That is the distinction. Basically, it is the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge, but at the same time, it has been touched by Sukadeva Goswami. The Lord is the supreme object of yoga and the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. He reveals himself only to his devotees, and by the mercy of his devotees, all can relish his intimate association.